G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 25th of February 2026. Now, Mr. Zelensky claims that the corruption in Ukraine is on par with that of Europe. So, European corruption is far worse, and Europe is letting on because Europe declared Ukraine the most corrupt nation in Europe. So if it's actually only on par, that means it's only known how bad it is in Ukraine and not known in the rest of Europe. Or is it all of the corruption in Ukraine is just business as usual? It is obviously not the flex that the liberal democracy thinks it is, but the liberal democracy doesn't actually believe in democracy. It believes in getting their way all the time, no matter what, which is why, you have someone in office who is unelected. But of course, it's not a dictatorship when we do it. Just ask us about General Tay and the statements by LBJ about how he's our dictator. Yeah, he's not a dictator, he's our dictator. Yeah, that's the attitude of the Democrats, right? But as we look around the Ukraine war map, there is not really much to report right now. There is hardly any movement on the map, right? But there is a lot of aerial strikes on parts of Ukraine. There is a large chunk of what they call the frozen battlefield. They have sporadic attacks in Krasnivka and other areas. Now, a little bit of Radinsky has been occupied by the Russians, but there's still, the significant half is occupied now. There's still some held onto by the Ukrainians. Now, of course, they're going. The Russians have advanced towards Bedrishki and are going around to the flanks in south of Vinashki. But most of the places, the bear trap here at Pavosk is still going off, and of course the Ukrainians keep coming down the river to, or canal, whatever you want to call it, to the waterways to get their asses handed to them. But don't worry, they're stunning and brave, But lots of movement, lots of attacks, not much success so far. But there is still, I suppose it's the grind, and to the Russians, the grind, and they are moving slowly north here, but the grind is their strategy. It's working for them. They are winning, so they're not going to change their strategy, and they have advanced little bits here and there, but it's still haven't taken all of this town, or this one here. They've taken this one, and now having to defend it. And Zelensky is still hasn't fallen. Most of Hulapol, but not all of it. And the Russians, of course, heading other areas. They are obviously still pushing, but a lot of the drone. There aren't that many drone attacks today, and I think only one missile at Mykolaiv. So they launch one missile, one gets through, but somehow every other day they shoot them all down. Yeah, we believe you. But they really aren't doing much, according to the Ukrainians. According to the Ukrainians, the Russians are only killing civilians. There's no military targets. We're a peaceful country. And they had a UN resolution on lasting peace in Ukraine. They got their way. They got the resolution. It's not binding, right? None of these countries are participating. Right, 51 countries did abstain, but the countries who just want to, you know, posture, the UN is just about posturing, about appearances. They want to appear to do something. And plus, all the African EU countries are going to vote because they want to take the attention off their corruption. Of course, Ursula von der Leyen is promising to deliver 90 billion euros to Ukraine, but it was blocked by Hungary and Slovakia. And of course, Ukraine is vowing vengeance. Vengeance will be mine. But of course, it's nothing but propaganda for coming out of Ukraine, and yet people still eat it up. Even though 3 years ago today, I think it was Military News was saying how Russia's finished. They can't fight the Mad Max vehicles of Ukraine, right? The Tempest and all these other little sports utility vehicles that they buy from America, from an American firm, that owned by a Ukrainian, for thousands of dollars, and yet these sports utilities vehicles are actually only on the market for a few hundred vehicles. They're only carbon fiber little electric vehicles. They're only sports, off-road. Right, it's like buying a cheap motorcycle and slapping a coat of paint on it and saying it's a special paint, it's camouflaged. So it's military, so the price goes up. Yeah, but overall, this is just a big con job. Overpriced weapons. Zelensky's obviously never going to suffer the consequences of his actions. And the Liberals, they're never going to come to their senses. Stop thinking you could save them. You can't. Right? They're going to march this world into the grave because they didn't get a pony from Daddy. Now, the Russian Ka-29 has been issued a new weapons pod. Here it is being loaded up, clicked into place. It's got a cooling jacket that's off at the moment. You can see it's a air-cooled. There's the heat exhaust. There's the twin barrels of the 23. It's sitting beside a S 80mm those dumb rockets. They use standard rounds, standard warheads, often on a MIL-8 or a Ka-29 as the updated version. Then they go out, fire rockets, and boom. By drone. So often, big heavy workhorse carrying lots of pods. 80mm S8 unguided. But the current currently they're replacing some of the pods with these bad boys, and they're just going out in pairs or sometimes packs of 4. And as you can see, they just shoot up. There you go. There's the rockets. There's the helicopter flying off as the thing explodes. There. Just literally zigzagging into a field of... look at that explosion. I suppose if it's zigzagging all the way, that the best idea is saturate an area with rockets. An sympathetic detonation from the shockwaves will take out the drone boat. As you see, the water's actually got a lot of targets there. It's a target-rich environment as they fly towards the Ukrainian coast. Here they are flying off Crimea. Yeah, they have a effective range and a combat radius, right? Combat radius. So it's still like quite a 900 meters, right? Go offshore, from these little bunkers. You see the fire base up close, but from afar, there's not much on the surface, right? As you see, that's the test on the test targets. They light them up, just basically front to back, 23 millimeters. Again, these are mostly usually standard rounds. They're not using the flak. The flak's used mostly for air drones. Summer winter, yeah, that's an older pack with the quad cannon there. Lots of small caliber bullets, but I think it was a 12.7. But no, these are heavier. 12.7, they can, light them up.
GSH-23L cannon with 250 rounds per pod.
250 rounds, there you go. Just zip and rip your little skeet boat apart. And here we go.
Exactly the system captured in the recent footage, delivering sustained, high-velocity cannon fire against the Ukrainian drone.
Yeah. As you can see there, the gunner is the third guy. He's in the second seat. He's using the thermal scope, and he's got a little adjuster for the there, taking control, and it rips them to shreds. A bit of stats on the helicopter. Yeah, sometimes they have door gunners, right? They have quite an array of helicopters, and they have quite a lot of success. Don't know whether they have dummy loads in the pot. Must be a training run. But yeah, you can see lights up, cuts it up. The boat can zigzag. It is operated. Ukrainian operators. Do we have aerial look at the boat? I think we've been past it, actually. Yeah. It's got a little mast on it. That's a radar mast, but also for the receiving from Starlink, right? The guidance information. But someone is looking and operating. But SC-34's range has been increased with these new special drop tanks. A single SC-34, I think out of Vladivostok, can fly to Russia, from Russia to Washington and back in a single flight. Of course, using the same method the Americans do. They use tankers to mid-flight to top them up to double their range. But they got big tanks, big external tanks, and they can top them up in as they refuel, balance their fuel load. Russia's claimed to have taken a Ruzhnaka in a flanking maneuver, but nothing really backed up over the last day, and we'll find out up to a week later what's true or not. Sometimes, however, though, when a Russian battle group has advanced through offensive actions, most of the time the Ukrainians do not update the map straight away, and a few times the Ukrainians have pushed them back. But Russia calls on Europe to reconsider its escalation, which is they're not going to do. They're going to continue to ship arms to Ukraine and the only peace call. Now, I don't know how much of this is true again, but there is talk that UK and France were going to transfer nuclear technologies to Ukraine. Ukraine claims this is nothing but Russian disinformation, but Russia's alleged to have broken Ukraine's defensive lines in Zaporozhye. But mostly this is just bragging how they have made advances. But they've, 400 square kilometres. So they've increased, not by much. But yeah, crawled for a pipeline in Zhenuzhka to flank the Ukrainians. Yeah, coming in here. It's rare for them to publish so much details. Again, they admit to, this is the Russians admitting they haven't always been successful. In some areas they have been able to cross the river swiftly, but nevertheless they have not always held territory. But they have been able to hold Dushinovia, but not Kupiansk. They've had a reversal and a pullback. From their initial success, though, they had overrun Kupiansk, but the Ukrainians came in behind and split their forces, and Russia decided to pull back and are still unable to gain any advantage there. Lyman again, right? They are coming to Lyman. There's a bridge. Now, allegedly, they have destroyed some of these bridges. Russia, not Ukraine, to cut off reinforcements to Lyman, and they are pushing in and allegedly closer to Lyman than the media would have you believe. But also the scale of the map, right? This is the Lyman is at the crossroads here. Lyman Falls. Logistics and support for all this side of the river, and will affect all the way over to here. Now, in this area, as you can see, Chevchyar, the Russians had pushed, but they have been unable to maintain their push towards Krasnokovia. They are currently frozen. As you can see, it's a different map from what they show you in other media. But, you can see over the last, 3 months, I suppose, from was it November or December when they launched the offensive? I think we're coming to the end of 6 weeks into the offensive. So, yeah, probably the beginning of December. But this is the Zelensky line here, the Krasnokovia. The Russians are in Krasnokovia, but they're not far into Krasnokovia. It's a big area as well. But they have, it's October, November when they launched, But again, the small strategic important areas have been captured, right? They have been able to push, right, in Russia calls it Gutapol, but there's Hulapol here where, that's their target. Right, they've got taken 90%. There's this gap here that they still, but they're holding most of it still. They've been pretty consequential to breaking the Ukrainian lines, but the Ukrainian lines, they're 3 to 4 deep, so they've only broken a line, and they admit to mixed success, but on the scale of the battle, remember, there are 870,000 Ukrainians to 670,000 Russians, and 50,000 of those are a mix of North Koreans, Colombians, and other foreign. Now, apparently, India only had 12 Indians fighting in Ukraine, and India demanded they return home. Apparently, they did after getting their release processed. There was a Nigerian or a Ugandan and a Kenyan who were captured by Ukraine, who were handed back to their home countries. Now, apparently, I think it was only the Kenyan who was arrested for fighting for a foreign army. But all in all, it's pretty piss poor, but by other standards, but by Russia's standards, they're doing better than they have in the past. Now, of course, Zelensky has demanded he get 90 million euros. He's demanded that Hungary, Slovakia, and Czechoslovakia contribute to the loan. But they could go ahead without him, but it's 5.6 billion less, right? Which covers the annual interest payments. So they want to lump Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czechs with the bill for Ukraine. Now, fuck that. Yeah. Europe is a corrupt organisation full of corrupt people who want to feather their own nest at everybody else's expenses, bring in all this cheap labour thinking, oh, but it'll lower the cost of living. But no, it won't, because the rest of the people won't have any jobs, so they can't buy anything, so the economy goes downhill. So the government, in order to maintain revenue, will pressure prices up, not down. You're stupid. So many people are so stupid, and they keep repeating the same cycle of stupidity. Russia has threatened to use any weapon it deems fit if Ukraine acquires nuclear technology. Now, I believe that Ukraine was obsessed with obtaining what they called a defensive weapon. There's no such thing. Okay, these so-called battlefield defensive weapons, yeah, the fallout is likely to fall on everybody for a start, right? Half the time, the blast radius on these weapons is only theoretical. So it may be 200 meters, it may be 2,000 kilometers. No one knows, right, how enriched, because it does depend how enriched these and a lot of these won't even actually nuclear detonate. The explosion, right, just spreads nuclear material. Right, these so-called nuclear shells. But without a shadow of doubt, Russia sees nuclear weapons in Ukraine as a threat to Russia. And they've always stated, that Zelensky stated he wants to destroy Putin. He wants to make Russia suffer. And remember, Zelensky is not a Ukrainian. He's a Russian. Right? So when they say Russians are destroying Ukraine, yes, and Zelensky is one of them. Okay? Ukrainians just are so proud, got such a chip on their shoulder. Right, they've been corrupt for so long. You can look up the Ukrainian model scandal. They were involved in Epstein. They were all money laundering for Epstein. This is a festering legacy of the Obama era, which should have been put to bed, put to rest, cut off from funds, and like Tchaikovsky, pressured and bullied out of office. Zelensky, but Europe is obsessed with hurting Russia, right? Saying that it needs to defend itself against Russian terror, and for Zelensky to hold the front lines. Ukraine needs more because our promise of help does not end war. No, but we know liberal promises don't do dick, but nor does liberal loans, because you're buying weapons at 4 times the price, right? And then Ukraine turns around and sells them for twice the price. So they buy weapons at a high price and sell at a low price. Yeah, that's genius economics. Genius economics. Because that's what you get with people who are great at pontificating and stirring the passions of the ignorant class, right? Those who always think they're better than you because they have their degrees, right? Degree is just a measure of to what extent, to what degree they can parrot the professor, as the professor is nothing more than a pontificator of parroting himself, right? None of them do anything of real-world consequence. There's no real-world experience in university. That's all marketing material. If you really studied war, you would know, right? Even a slow grind war like this grinds to where it wants to halt, and then it halts. That there's no external factors that will stop this war. The Russian economy is too big. The Russians, if they start hurting, will just increase the firepower they use on Ukraine. And as you know, the Russians are sore losers, and they're going to increase the firepower anyway next month. Right? They've already increased the firepower by, 10,000 units this month. It's going to be 10,000 more next month. You watch, right? There'll be 10,000 more bombs. So there'll be more strikes, and we'll eventually start to see something of consequence blowing up. Not just vehicles, not just parking lots, not just gas stations. Right? They'll grind Ukraine to a halt. They start blowing up bridges. Right? You start cutting off half of Ukraine. Right? You start cutting off the start blowing up bridges in this band here. Right? You'll cut them off. Right? I don't know entirely exactly where, but this will leave most things coming through here, and Russia could focus its firepower on Dnipro. I would start with Dnipro. I'd just start systematically destroying every warehouse in Dnipro and put it on TV. But I think Russia's worried that Ukraine has already settled into this war. I mean, we saw how half of Vietnam was unaffected by the Vietnamese War. So it's the same, right? It's not like Korea or even the Chechen War, where most of the country was affected. No, most of Ukraine is unaffected by this war, and Russia wants to keep it that way. So they want to slowly creep through, which they have, and then they slowly want to push out Ukraine, which they have, but they don't, because they don't want to provoke the Europeans. And again, I always said that it appears the way the Russian strikes that they're formulating, right? The fact that they're striking in a set pattern all the time, right? That they're formulating to take just all this down here and right through to Zaporozhye. That's why they're increasing, right? As you get to the end of the war, they're increasing their attacks. You can see it here, right? The line through here, right? They're increasing their attacks. That's where they're going. That's where they're going to stop, right? But how far? It's how much after that, right? If they still have time, how much further will they go? Because I think now Russia's looking to gain every advantage they can, so they're not going to stop at their goal, right? They'll just move the goalpost until they get to the breaking point. Then they'll pull back and dig in, and that's what I think it is. I wish sometimes people would do the right thing, and this, but no, it's we're waiting. For the foreign policy establishment in Europe to collapse in a screaming heap, because they can't reconcile their beliefs. They cannot face the people and tell them the truth, right? And that's sooner or later people are going to realize, that all these people screaming on the internet are just distracting from their own corruption, their own pettiness, their own inability to accept losing an election. So thank you all for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy merch. All my links in the link tree, description or in my profile. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next video, and bye for now.